Meet Shirone, our protagonist. As an infant he was abandoned by his parents but was found by a family of hunters who raised him in a loving home. Despite the hardships of peasant life, he learned to read from an early age and became obsessed with books. One day he accidentally meets a magician and learns how to enter the spirit zone, the first step to learning magic. Although everyone says only nobles can be mages, can Shirone prove his limitless potential? But before we find out, let's start the story from the beginning. Under the blanket of stars lies a mountain range, where the cries of a baby echo through the night. This land belongs to a brave hunter, whose first instinct upon hearing these cries is to grab his axe, believing someone is trying to steal from his farm. He's certain these critters have made a big mistake by targeting a hunter's cabin. He follows the sound of the cries around his farm, and when he reaches the stable, he finds no one there except his horses. For a moment he wonders if he's hallucinating. After all, ever since he and his wife learned they couldn't have children, he's been hearing babies' cries. But it wasn't a hallucination. There in the pasture is a real baby. He quickly picks up the child, and when he pulls the baby close, he can actually feel its heartbeat. At that moment, his wife arrives, shocked to see him holding a child. When asked, he answers to his wife that he feels like this child is given to them. The time passes and now this baby and our hero, Shirone, the boy once found in the stable, grew up reading this tale. He is reading a famous tale of a mage who, with a mere motion of his hands, can summon rain for townsfolk waiting for it. This mage can also protect the town from threats beyond its borders. Through his mystical powers, peace and prosperity thrived, and hunger and thirst were banished. Yet the mage did not rest. Tirelessly, he pursued his research, always striving to better the lives of the people. His deeds were so extraordinary that they called him the well-mannered mage, and his story became a legend cherished by all. Now 12 years old, Shirone often buries himself in books. His reading is interrupted by his father's voice. Vincent Arian, now 40, after finishing their work of chopping wood, Vincent affectionately swings his son around before signaling it is time to head home. As they walk through the wilderness, Shirone looks up at his father and asks about magic, how it works, and whether he could ever learn to use it. The humble hunter, who knows little beyond hunting, responds that killing a bear with one blow is also a kind of magic for him. Meanwhile, some of Shirone's mates see him with his father. They wonder why Shirone is always so interested in accompanying his father or reading books. Even when they invite him to play, he refuses. They begin doubting whether Shirone can really read the books. As they see Shirone walking beside Vincent, some of the children begin to think that Vincent is not really his father. One of them realizes that his mother tells him that Vincent doesn't own Shirone, claiming they found him somewhere when he was still a baby. Meanwhile, as the children talk, Vincent overhears them. He becomes angry inside but does not confront the boys. Instead, he holds on to his belief that he is Shirone's father, no matter what. Determined to make Shirone happy, Vincent decides to take him to the city the next day to get the fruits he wants, as a reward for helping him that day. Shirone feels happy and eagerly looks forward to going to the market, though Vincent silently wishes he could do more for him. However, Shirone remains desperate to learn about magic. The next day they go to the city, Crayus, in the kingdom of Tormia. Shirone marvels at the beautiful view of the city. When they reach a certain store, Vincent asks Shirone to stay with a grandfather he knows while he runs some errands. He warns Shirone not to wander around and to avoid nobles. Vincent quickly heads off, leaving Shirone waiting. While helping the grandfather a little, Shirone seizes the chance to ask him about magic. At first the old man doesn't understand, so Shirone repeats himself. The man then directs him to a bookstore in front of his shop where he can find books about magic. Excited, Shirone quickly heads to the bookstore. Opening his book, grandfather exclaimed how he used to read these kinds of fairy tale books in his childhood, but was stunned to see the content of this book, which is far beyond his comprehension. When our boy enters into bookstore and is about to grab a book, he is shouted at and told not to touch anything. The shopkeeper claims his hands are too filthy to handle the books. Shirone asks if he can at least read one, but he is denied again. The books, the shopkeeper explains, are very costly and meant only for nobles. Her answer makes him wonder where his father gets his books from. After checking some books secretly, Shirone walks out of the store. Then, he notices some nobles taking a stack of books somewhere. Then he throws these books in a corner on the floor. Recognizing the spot, he realizes that it might be where his father gets the books he reads to him. This makes Shirone wonder why the nobles receive such privileges while he is excluded. Remembering his father's warning about avoiding the nobles, he starts to question what might be wrong as they can get what they want, but someone like him can't. As Shirone prepares to leave the area, guards suddenly catch him. They demand to know how he managed to get inside the gates of the bookstore compound, which is reserved for nobles only. Shirone explains that his father is nearby, but the guards do not believe him. They assume he is an orphan and decide to detain him. Before they can get a proper hold of him, Shirone skillfully escapes. By the time they realize what has happened, they find themselves holding only his jacket. Shirone has already hidden behind some flowers near a building. After a while, he comes out of his hiding spot to get his shoe and go back. But then Shirone hears some children discussing magic. They are asking someone to explain what magic is. At first, the headmaster gives in to a demand to show a spell to the kids, but he asks them to answer his question. What is most important about learning magic? Our boy listens intently, thinking of his own answer. After many students respond that it must be knowledge, ability, or money, each answer is rejected by the headmaster. At that point, our boy wonders whether it's about being noble, but his eyes widen when he hears that the most important thing for learning magic is insight. At that moment, Shirone feels he has found an answer he had been searching for. The students ask about the reason behind that answer, and the headmaster elaborates, saying that it's because insight is sharper than knowledge and swifter than ability. He also adds that with a little cultivation, anyone with enough insight can become a mage. As Shirone listens intently to the conversation within the compound, he wonders whether he also has a chance to become a mage. Next moment, he suddenly hears an old man's voice, suggesting that he climb the wall if he wants to hear better. Shirone is initially shocked that the old man seems to know what he is thinking. Unsure of what to do, he considers whether to follow the suggestion or walk away. Finally, he decides to climb the wall, feeling as though not doing so would be a regret he might carry for the rest of his life. So he climbs to the top of the wall and sees a group of children gathered around an old man sitting under a tree. The old man notices him immediately, and to Shirone's surprise, invites him to come down and join the conversation. The old man, Alpheus Mirhi, is the headmaster of Lauhia's School of Magic and a level 4 mage. Encouraged by Alpheus's warm invitation, Shirone prepares to climb down from the wall to join the group. Finally, our boy stands in front of the headmaster of his dream school, and the kids surround him. But as soon as the kids spot him, they scoff at him for not having noble blood. They even ask him to go away. Totally stunned to see the scene in front of him, he breaks out of his trance when the headmaster asks about his purpose for jumping from the wall. Shirone expresses his curiosity about seeing magic. The headmaster wonders if he has ever seen magic, to which he responds that he has only read about it in books. Some kids protest, while saying that he must be lying, as it's a common belief that peasants can't read. However, persistent in his wish, he just bows and pleads with the headmaster. The headmaster grants his wish by calling the wind, which excites the kids around him as well. He is stunned to see how it is possible, but he gets his answer the next moment when the headmaster calls the wind, which levitates him along with all the kids. He shouts as he is lifted into the air and wonders whether they are going to come down the same way. He winces and braces himself for the fall, but it never comes as the headmaster gives him a smooth landing. Then headmaster chuckles and asks about his opinion on his demonstration of magic. Instead of answering him, our boy asks the headmaster what exactly magic is. The headmaster pretends to think of an example, but our boy asks bluntly about the concept of magic, even though he doesn't understand it. The students gasp at him for demanding this rudely from the headmaster, something even teachers won't dare to do. The headmaster chuckles and explains that magic is something that goes beyond the normal rules of our world. In simple words, it is a way of using mental understanding to explore the hidden truths in phenomena. The headmaster comments that it must be hard for him to understand this concept, but he is stunned when Shirone relates the concept of magic to anomalous events. He asks whether our MC has read this in his books. Shirone answers negatively while explaining it's noticed by him that every person who thinks differently is attacked by normal people. But later, the theories of these people become knowledge. He asks whether it has something to do with the anomalous. The headmaster confirms his theory. Without wasting time, Shirone asks about the method of learning magic. The headmaster truly admires Shirone's intelligence but also pities him for being a peasant. However, he answers him anyway with a demonstration of magic. He asks one of his students to enter the spirit zone. She complies immediately, and our boy can sense the change in her. Then, the headmaster asks about the quantity of the coins in his hand, and she immediately answers that it is 6, which is a correct answer. Shirone wants to know the method behind it. While changing the quantity of the coins, the headmaster explains that the spirit zone is an extra-sensitive mental state, in which even great mages can tell the number of leaves on a faraway tree by merely sensing them. This time, the student once again answers correctly the quantity of the coins. While opening his fist, he explains to our boy that once he enters the spirit zone, he can control the phenomena. Shirone immediately understands that she can't count the coins but feel them. He thinks maybe he also has a chance to do it. The headmaster encourages him, saying that he can also do it by erasing himself and finding himself. However, our boy counters that if he can't erase himself, he won't find himself. The headmaster is happy with his progress and believes that he can surpass him. Then, he asked him to try it out. The headmaster knows that he can't learn magic without entering the spirit zone. Our boy closes his eyes and meditates to find himself. He first tries to find himself in his brain but rejects this idea, as the brain is merely an organ. He needs to feel something that is not outside. Then, he tries to reach the feeling he can't define. For this purpose, he needs to erase himself. He finally catches the feeling with his sensitivity. After a while, he opens his eyes and sees everyone. The headmaster asks if he feels something. Shirone defines that he can hear everything, which prompts a quip from the kids that he can hear because he is here. Meanwhile, the headmaster understands that he can't do it yet, because going into the spirit zone means entering another dimension where one can sense smells from sounds and tastes from colors, even experiencing a landscape of feelings in their body. The headmaster then pats his head and encourages him to keep doing this to hear more sounds. Then, he concludes the class and orders his students to head back to their classes. While going back, the headmaster feels pity for Shirone, who had great chances to become a mage and achieve so much if he had been raised in a noble family. Meanwhile, our boy jumps from the wall, sweating profusely. He is in disbelief that he can actually do it. While running on the road, Shirone recalls his experience of being in the spirit zone. He feels like he is split into thousands of pieces and scattered across the planet. It's as if he himself has become a world. He is on the verge of crying, overwhelmed by the intense experience in which he feels like he is unleashed from his body and has become infinite. In this state, he doesn't notice that he bumps into someone and falls to the ground. He apologizes to the person, who turns out to be a bunch of rowdy people. One of them grabs his collar while threatening him, saying that he can't just run around and crash into people. Our boy thinks he might be about to get killed here. Suddenly, a new voice interrupts, asking whether she is missing something. Everyone shows great respect to the newcomer, who turns out to be a noble young lady visiting to counter her boredom. The goon tells her that they are teaching Shirone a lesson for trying to kill them. But our dude protests the accusations. However, the goon doesn't like him talking back and starts to beat him. He is now on the ground, trembling. The people around him curse him and even ask to see his mother, which makes Shirone quite angry. They provoke him a little more while beating and kicking him, but they are stopped by Amy, who mockingly asks about his well-being. Trembling, he clarifies that he didn't do anything wrong, but he is shocked to hear Amy suggest selling him to the south. No one will care about him as he is just a peasant boy. Hearing this, he calls out to his parents. Unfazed by his misery, Amy even asks the goons to check him out, whether he is damaged somewhere, as he should be intact as a slave. The men are quite excited to humiliate him, but she asks them to examine only his face. Meanwhile, she nervously thinks about Shirone's odd behavior, as she is just planning to have some fun before letting him go. But they don't know he has gone to the spirit zone, which heightens his sensitivity to the things around him. At first, he doesn't understand what exactly is happening. The next moment, he remembers how the headmaster has called the wind. Outside, his body is jerked by the goon, who wants some reaction from him. Amy also understands what's really happening and asks them to stop. But it is too late, as Shirone suddenly calls the wind, and everyone is lifted into the air while his eyes widen at the sight of himself using magic. With a louder heartbeat, he falls to the floor, looking at his bullies in pain. Desperate, Amy asks about his identity and his source of learning this magic, because he can't do it as he is just a farmer. But next moment, some people are attracted by the sound, and Amy immediately leaps into the air in front of him. He is in awe of her skill but doesn't have time to dwell on it, so he immediately runs away from that place. While running toward his father, he understands the coldness of this world. The scene shifts to the manor of House Karmas, which is a first-class nobility, where Shikola, the master of the house, looks at his daughter Amy and thinks that she must be playing hooky again, judging by the state of her appearance. She is quite furious about what happened with Shirone, while her father gives her a long lecture about skipping class and laziness, but suddenly she stops and abruptly demands that he introduce her to a magic school. Spring turns to winter, and inside the Aryan household, Vincent asks for his son. His wife informs him that their son has gone to the logging area to cut some wood. He is shocked to hear this, as it is snowing, and he becomes determined to find him. While on his way, he remembers the time when he almost lost him during the spring season. But Shirone had come back, excusing himself by saying he lost his way. However, his father senses that something happened to him that day. Meanwhile, in the snow, Shirone is thinking about the time when he was able to use magic while cutting the wood, but he can't use it afterwards. That time, he had done it subconsciously, so he doesn't know what he lacks to perform magic again, due to his lack of knowledge regarding magic. But the good thing is, he can still enter the spirit zone, which he currently enters and senses everything in front of him, although he can't explain it. With that, he raises his axe and shatters the whole tree in one go. He himself is shocked to see that he has knocked down the tree in one swing. He knows what he has done is magic. Meanwhile, his father is also shocked to see him doing this, and thinks it's a thunderstrike skill he has learned to perform. Shirone is also thinking that it is not magic but a single successful stroke among hundreds of strikes from his axe. He is determined to practice this again and again because he knows that luck can't be his partner in success. but knowledge will be. With that same determination, our dude passes 3 years, and now, in one fall, he can feel things that his eyes can't see. He touches the tree, and with a single swing of his axe, he is able to shatter it. Suddenly, he notices that he has been meditating for 5 hours. During his time in the spirit zone, he feels like he has become nature itself. He can sense the swinging of trees, the voices of insects, even the sounds of roots sucking moisture from the earth. He is so indulged in it that 5 hours don't feel enough. He remembers the headmaster's words, and understands that he can now feel himself as a part of this world. Then he goes back home. He immediately notices white horses and a luxury carriage in front of his house, and wonders if they have a guest. When he enters inside, he instantly senses something as he sees a refined man sitting with his parents. His parents want him to take a seat before they talk. The person introduces himself as Timoran, the butler of the House of Orient. Shirone greets him in return while wondering about his purpose for being there. Timoran examines his face closely and asks whether he can read. Our boy answers that he has been able to read since he was very young. Meanwhile, he doesn't understand the reason behind the inspection and asks about his purpose for doing this. Timoran suddenly drops a bomb by offering him a job at the House of Orient. At that, Timoran explains the specifics of his job. Orient family's great library needs to be relocated. The library holds more than 10,000 books, and his job is to ensure that not a single book leaves the grounds. It will take more than 2 years for him to complete this job, as the heavy lifting will be done by porters, and his work will be sorting the books. He is stunned to realize that this opportunity will allow him to read thousands of books, some of which might be about magic. But the next words stop his thought process. His job carries a risk. If any book leaves the grounds, it will mean the death of his parents. Now he understands the reason behind his parents' grave faces. The butler adds that he will be paid a large sum of money, an amount so high that he couldn't earn this much in his entire lifetime as a hunter. Then he tells his father that this is the reason he is selling his son. Vincent protests, saying that it is not his reason for making this deal. He wants his son to achieve his dream. The butler chuckles and doesn't believe him because if it's not for money, what else would make Vincent beg him to hire Shirone for this job? Vincent asks if Shirone will have a chance to read books there. The butler confirms it but reminds him that he won't be allowed to read books all the time. He reprimands Vincent, saying that he should be honest with his son because this job is not about him achieving his dream. This brings back memories of a 6-year-old Shirone, who was taught some words by his mother and started reading books. His radiant appearance and sharp mind made Vincent wonder whether he had noble blood in his veins. He wished that were the case. If Shirone were a noble, he would have a chance to go to school, but he rejected the idea because Shirone was his son. However, as soon as our boy joined him in his work, Vincent realized with dread that he was turning his son into another lumberjack. That's why he begged Timoran to hire Shirone so that he would have a chance to read books. But now, after hearing Timoran's words, Vincent clearly expresses that he doesn't care about his money and asks him to get out of his house. The butler knows that the conversation is over and puts on his hat, while Vincent seethes with anger at Timoran's attitude, while the butler is wondering how this family would throw away such an opportunity. But he stops when Shirone firmly states that he is going to take the job. The butler asks if he is sure because even the tiniest rumor of a lost book can cost him his life. But our boy understands the risk and still wants to take the job and do it properly. At that, Timoran gives him 1 week to change his mind before he returns to take him. However, once he steps onto the manor grounds, he cannot change his mind. When the butler leaves, his father protests, saying that he was naive to ask for the job. But now that he understands its gravity, he is going to turn it down. But he stops in his tracks when he sees Shirone crying tears of joy, calling this the best gift of his life. Vincent hugs him with teary eyes and assures his son that they will always be with him whenever he needs them. But he also wants his son to return in one piece. He is happy to finally do the right thing as a father. The family is teary-eyed while thinking about the upcoming departure. After a week, the servants of the Orient family come and ask for Vincent's signature. After he signs, without wasting any time, they take our dude to the carriage and close the door behind him. As soon as they settle inside the carriage, Shirone immediately enters the spirit zone to check on his parents, who are crying for him. During his time in the spirit zone, he wants to reach out to them but stops midway, realizing that he has a once-in-a-lifetime chance. But he also knows the risks of having this job and living among powerful people. He wonders whether he will come back in one piece after 2 years. After a while, they finally reach close to the House of Orient, which is located within the Kreia city of the Kingdom of Tormia. Basically, the House of Orient is a family of warriors, with its founder being a level 3 general, and the current head of the house is a level 4 knight. In other words, they hold city's military authority in their hands. Finally, they are in front of the great manor of the House of Orient. He is frightened to see the grandiosity of the territory of the house, which makes the servants quip that he still needs to meet the family. Others warn him to be cautious with his words. He looks around, totally in awe of the second-class nobility, which is Orient. The servants usher him to the servant quarters and offices, which will be his home for the next 2 years. A while later, he is in front of Timoran, who asks him to follow him to learn about his work. Timoran finally shows him the great library of the house, which stuns him. Timoran adds that he will be moving these books while classifying them. Each week, he will be handed the list of books he needs to gather. He also tells him the working hours, which will be from 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening. He can do whatever he likes with his free time, as long as he doesn't enter the main house or leave the grounds. Then he is handed the list and asked whether he has any other questions. Shirone knows that his life is on the line in this kind of work, which he can't mess up. So he asks when he's going to start, and the butler answers, "From tomorrow." From tomorrow, he finally wears the uniform and starts his work by reading the list. Meanwhile, he clearly understands why the task of sorting is given to only one person. He needs to understand the sorting, whether to classify the history of swordsmanship in the history section or the swordsmanship literature section. While sorting the books, he also realizes how all of that knowledge is interconnected, and its root is none other than history. He then decides to read all of the history books, which are 850 among the 10,000 books, and supplement them with others. He needs to do it in order to become a mage. He then senses someone coming and immediately hides the books because he isn't allowed to read them. Timoran comes inside, compliments his work, and asks if he is going to work late again, which Shirone confirms. Then, Timoran suggests him to take it easy, as they have a long way to go. The next moment, he turns toward him and grabs his shoulder. Our dude is scared, wondering whether the butler has caught him reading. But the next moment, Timoran dusts off his shoulder while advising him to maintain his appearance in front of his master and their sons. He further asks him to do something with his long hair, to which Shirone complies. He takes a sigh of relief after this close call. Now he is on his own. He needs to maintain good work and decides to tie his hair like his father. Later that night, when he is reading the history of Tormia, he understands the biggest problem. Reading and understanding is harder than he anticipated. He wonders whether he should memorize them, but then decides to understand at least one part of the event and move on. Before he reads further, exhaustion catches up with him, and he dozes off in the books. While he is asleep, Timoran comes in and pulls the book from his arms. He looks at the history book and scoffs at Shirone's idea of reading, knowing it would take him half a month to read it all. He doesn't believe reading can bring any success to the boy. In fact, he would forbid him from reading if it was practical information Shirone was after. Timoran leaves with pity for our boy, thinking that he is nothing but a stupid dreamer with crazy ideas. It has already been 3 months since our boy started working in the great library of the House of Orient. Currently, he delivers 4 piles for the porters to move to their new location. Meanwhile, he is also becoming a pro at sorting books and working as a librarian. When a servant takes a book for Master Lai, he protests that Lai hasn't returned the last book. The servant explains that he tried to persuade him to return it, but masters don't care about these books, because if one goes missing, Shirone will be in trouble. At that, our boy concludes that nobles don't care as much about books as they let on. So basically, peasants like him have to walk on eggshells to avoid making mistakes that could risk their lives. So, he decides not to draw attention to himself. His thoughts are interrupted by a blue-haired guy rushing toward him. It is the youngest Ogent's son, Leon, who is running from his master to skip training. His master shouts that he is going to make him do 100 laps as punishment, but Leon immediately hides under the table before asking Shirone not to tell his master where he is. Master rushes inside and asks about Leon. Our boy nervously asks about the identity of the master. Master angrily introduces himself as Leon's master, and insists he tell the location of Leon. Left with no choice, he points under the table where Leon is hiding. Master Kate drags him out from the table, which makes our dude wince. Master Kate promises to train him with mental endurance training today. Meanwhile, Leon is glaring at him for doing this. On the other side, Shirone nervously thinks that he has no choice because the instructor has the same power in the house as the master of the house. After this incident, the rumor spreads about how Leon is dragged by Master Kate to the mountains. A month has passed since this incident. During these days, it takes him 20 days to read his first book, but now he understands books of every level. For the next 4 months he goes through more than 82 history books. Now that he understands the books, he realizes that there is no new information in the other books. After going through 200 books, the remaining books are a breeze for him. At first he is nervous about whether he is right to spend so much time reading history, but after going through the books to understand the activities of mages in history, he understands that he made the right choice. He realizes from these books that if a scholar researches a theory, a mage is someone who turns this theory into reality. The only difference between a mage and a scholar is that a scholar can't enter the spirit zone. He shuts the book with a decision that he is going to add this vast backbone of knowledge into his spirit zone in order to become a mage. Before he can plan further, the door opens, and there stands a bleeding and furious Leon, who has been counting the days for this moment to come. Shirone gulps nervously because he knows what's coming. Leon coldly tells him that even after climbing the same cliff again and again, he has gathered his courage just to come here and get his revenge on him. Shirone understands that no matter what, Leon is blinded by his rage. Leon, on the other hand, demands him to say something. He even calls him a coward for throwing him to his master when he had asked for help. Shirone protests that he only tells the truth, but Leon grabs his collar while telling him that he should have told him beforehand that he wasn't going to help him. At that, our boy realizes that it's not easy for him to do something like this because of his position as a peasant. To solve the matter, Shirone asks him what to do to make things right for him. Leon immediately understands that he hasn't been working here for long because of his calm composure. Then he grins and asks him to follow him in the dead of night. After a while, they are inside the training field, which makes Shirone wonder whether he is going to be a punching bag for Leon. Desperately, he is ready to take the beating just to hold on to this opportunity, which is provided by him at the risk of his parents' lives. But he is stunned when Leon throws a wooden sword at him. Leon then asks him to duel with him like a man, not a coward. Shirone protests that he is not a coward but a servant who is expected to serve. Leon deadpans that it is because he had sold him to Master Kate to save his neck. He turned his back on him when he was in need. Now our boy, finding no choice, is holding the sword. With determination in his eyes, Leon is going to fight with him while giving him a chance of 3 swings head start. While looking at him, our boy understands that Leon's eyes are truly the eyes of an agent tonight. He is also thinking about his next strategy to tackle this problem. He knows that he will have to go home if he is beaten. Then he stops and realizes that he can go to the spirit zone because he has obviously been given 3 swings. With that, he starts his first swing, which is countered by Leon. Shirone understands Leon's strength from his swings. This time, he clenches the sword more tightly and gives a second strike, which is again blocked by Leon, who grins widely. He taunts our boy, asking whether he has ever held a sword. But Shirone is already in the spirit zone, knowing he has only one chance left. He knows that Leon won't be able to block him this time, and he strikes harder. Leon, who doesn't understand what happened exactly, nervously thinks that now it's his turn, but he is stupefied to see his sword burst in the next moment from the strength of Shirone's blow. Shirone is himself also stunned to see his success. His plan was to sense everything with the first swing, understand Leon's timing with his sword with the second, and finally hit the vital spot with the third blow. He had worked on Thunderstrike for the last 3 years and tried it now. Leon, who is totally shocked, finally finds his voice and asks about the source of Shirone's swordsmanship. Shirone answers truthfully that it was Thunderstrike. Seeing the confusion on his face, he elaborates that it's a technique he learned to chop trees in the mountains. Leon is totally baffled by his explanation that Shirone is able to use a sword after cutting trees. On the other hand, Leon is training for 15 years. He is in disbelief that sword art is something that can be learned from chopping wood. Leon remembers the time when Lai had broken his sword in the same way, and was praised by his father and master. His instructor even told his father that he didn't have anything more to teach Lai, as he was already far ahead of his age. At that time, no one gave heed to Leon while celebrating the genius genes of Lai. Leon was heartbroken that he couldn't be like his elder brother. Now he can see Lai and Shirone over again. So, he exclaims that he refuses to accept defeat. Shirone wants to apologize but is shut down by him. The next moment, Leon unsheaths his sword and clicks it back. To the surprise of our boy, he throws the sword to Shirone, who catches it. Leon reveals that just because he can do well with a wooden sword doesn't mean he can win. He gives him 1 month to prepare for the duel they will have with real swords. On the other side, Shirone's hands tremble as he sees his death in the form of a real sword. He asks Leon to reconsider because he doesn't know how to use a sword. With a darkened expression on his face, Leon expresses that if he can break a wooden sword after learning to chop trees, he can figure out something in this month. Before leaving, he even threatens to not leave, otherwise he will eventually catch him. Later, our guy is in the library, his head in his hands while he tries to understand the mess he is in. Basically, House Ogent has a peculiar trait of black and blue hairs in their family. The master of the house, along with the eldest son, have black hair and remarkable swordsmanship. His daughter, who has blue hair, is a great pianist, while Lai, a sword prodigy, also has black hair. But Leon is kind of a sore thumb in that family of talented people who didn't make a name for himself, even given a personal instructor. After thinking this, Shirone regrets that he should have just let Leon beat him a little. But now, he has blown Leon's ego, which is already bruised by the comparison with his brothers. By looking at the books, he thinks how he always had the ideal that books can save him. So now with determination, he goes to the shelf of books because he can't die here and risk his parents. He knows his time in the mountain gives him strength, so all he has to do is learn how to defend himself. For this purpose, he takes out a number of books on swordsmanship, so he will do what he can. Meanwhile, Leon is taking 100 laps according to the instruction given by Master Kate. Master senses that something is wrong because usually, Leon complains during training, but Leon answers sassily that this crap can't be called training, which pops Master's eyes from their sockets. With exhaustion on his face, he replies that this training is not hard enough because he is still standing on his feet. But Master Kate immediately understands that something has happened, which he denies with shallow breaths. But Master Kate is curious and associates his behavior with Lai's achievement, but then rejects this thought as Lai already had his schema. Anyway, he warns him that he can die with vigorous training, but Leon eagerly complies.